I just bought the cheapest Range Rover in the world for just £375. And already we've got major problems with this car. This engine here, it doesn't want to turn on. Now we all know Range Rovers have a bit of a reputation, and let's be honest about it, it's not exactly a good one. But despite all the horror stories, people still want them, especially the old L322. There's just something about owning a car that screams both luxury and royalty.
The Queen needs to roll with her crew. Take a look at these pictures of Queen Elizabeth driving her Range Rover.
And that demand has led to prices increasing for these old Range Rovers. But not this one. Yeah, it probably hasn't had the easiest life as it's been driven just under 200,000 miles. And to make things worse, this Range Rover here was sold as a non-runner. So it's no surprise it ended up at BCA, but that's exactly why I managed to pick it up for an absolute bargain. Now, a sensible person would break it for parts and move on, but I don't do sensible. I'm determined to get this thing running again. The only problem, nothing ever goes to plan with these old Range Rovers, but as it stands, the fate for this 200,000 mile Range Rover is yet to be written. So I'm in my Range Rover, arriving at BCA to pick up another Range Rover, another 2007 3.6 TD V8. You're probably going to be thinking, why have you bought another Range Rover? Well, there's a couple of reasons for that actually. The main one being that I got this Range Rover for an absolute bargain bid of £375. Even though it was sold as a non-runner, I saw some clues that told me that this car may have been driven recently. And even if I can't fix it, for the price, this would make the perfect car to keep for spare parts. There are already parts I need for my Range Rover, such as a wing mirror, a rear light. For the price I'm paying, why not take that risk? So let me park up, we'll head inside, get all the paperwork for the car, and then we're gonna attempt to see if this car's gonna start, because I'm inclined to think that this car was running up until the point it came to Blackbush car auction, but I've got my reasons. We'll get into all of that later, but let's find out what we're working with, get everything we need, and head down to the car. Now, in usual fashion, the procedure of collecting a car from British car auction starts with going inside to the main reception to obtain a pass out for your collection. But this being a non-runner meant it was all the way on the other side of BCA, so I had to jump back in my car for a short commute as I wanted to attempt to get this car running before calling for recovery. Black Range Rover, where are you? There we go. Look at that, lovely, £375. Let's have a quick walk around this really cheap Range Rover and see what we're working with. I can see we've got a bit of damage over here. Now this is obviously cosmetics, but the car has done 199,540 miles. The interesting thing is, it says we buy any car, and the guy that just gave me the keys to this car said that this car would have been driven in, so something's obviously gone wrong whilst it's here. Which does make sense to what I said earlier about spotting a clue before I bidded on this car. Fresh muddy tyres means it's probably been driven around BCA. But for £375 bid price, even if I have to just keep this car as a parts car, taking the lights, taking the wing mirrors, I'm happy with that. I'm absolutely happy. We have got a bit of rust down here. Funny enough, I've got the same on my Range Rover, but on this one, it is a lot worse. Which is something you all need to be made aware of when looking at old Range Rovers. Many of them suffer with severe rust. But all of which is expected on a car of this age and mileage. Side skirts as well, you can see, look, they're rotten, fully rotten away, but I've already bought new ones for mine. However, £375, when you consider things like parts on these cars can be a bit difficult to get hold of. The wheels on this car is something which I wanted to buy. Headlights, grille, all of these parts are things which people need. And considering I already own a 2007 Range Rover that needs a little bit of TLC, it made sense to try my luck and buy something cheap. And if it's not suitable to be fixed, well, I can use it for spare parts. Prime example, we've got a good wing mirror over here, and on this side we've got a wing mirror with a bit of damage. But there's definitely a lot of parts we can take from this car to put over here. That is, if we can't fix whatever's going on with this car. Because on first impressions, we've got a flat battery, and the only door which is working is the front passenger side. And when I just compare the state of the condition of the interior compared to when I picked up my Range Rover, this is not a nice place to be. Riverstone tobacco We've also got some plastic for all the filters, some Rizzler as well, so definitely a smoker's car. So in terms of how this car's been looked after, probably not as nice as my Range Rover. However, if it was to be cleaned and valeted, a lot of this is just cosmetic and we could bring it up to make it look better. The wood trim, I'm not so much of a fan of. I do prefer the piano black, but even still, things like that I can sell if I need to, as well as the interior. Clean it up if I need to, definitely can get some money back from that.
As if I can't get this car running, I will have to recoup back some money from whatever I can, but the overall state of this car is pretty shocking. The rear seats aren't as bad, but from the amount of shine on that leather, you can tell that it hasn't been cleaned in years.
Headlining, same situation as my car actually. You can see it's sagging, probably a bit more than what is on mine. So I guess that's a common issue on these cars, but let's grab that book back and see if there's anything in there. Let's have a look.
But other than some MOT certificates, an old vehicle sales receipt, and the odd random bit of history, there was nothing significant to find.
But you get an idea of how it's looking. Let me open the bonnet and see what's underneath there, and then I'm going to hook up my jump pack and see if we can get power, because at the moment everything's completely flat. The ignition, nothing's working at all, and even that door, I put the key in manually and nothing was turning at all. So let me get the bonnet opened.
And as I opened up the bonnet, I saw something a little bit strange with one of the intercooler pipes.
First thing we can see straight away is some water and oil contamination, and this is, funny enough, the same hose which I replaced on my car. So even if we do get this car running, it's not going to be running very well.
These hoses aren't meant to be split or covered in mayo, but it's no big deal. This is a common issue with the V8 engine and it's a simple fix. The part is only around £50 and only takes 5 minutes to replace.
I will check water and oil. It does look like we have got coolant in there. Can I see? Yeah, we have. It is a little bit low, but we have got it in there. Can't see anything else out of the ordinary just yet in terms of any major oil leaks, but I'll check the oil, put some power to the battery and see if we can get this car started. So let's start with that.
So the first thing to do is connect my jump pack directly to the battery and see if it registers anything.
Is it getting any power? No, it's not even registering anything. Let me do it manually. Right, something happened there. So it seems we have got some power, so let's try and see.
But still, none of the car doors would open.
We'll have to do it from the other side. I'm not super hopeful that this is going to start because I had issues with my Range Rover where jump pack just doesn't give it sufficient power, but let's see. Right, ignition on. Heater's come on, the screen's gone off. Let's give it a go. It's completely flat, isn't it? You can hear it wanting to start, but I don't think it's going to do it, but let me just try putting it on the terminals a little bit better again and just try one more time. Let's try hook that straight on over on this side. Let's put it back on there. Right, it's registered something this time, so it's an improvement to before. However, I'm still not that hopeful. Right, let's try.
So it wasn't looking promising. Even the interior light started to flicker, which is very unusual when using this jump pack.
It's not any good. I think we're going to have to call for recovery, get this car taken back home, get it plugged onto a charger and see if we can get it started. I am actually hopeful that this car will start, even though it was sold to me as a non-runner, only because with my Range Rover over here, I had a similar issue. When the battery died, I put jump packs on it, jump leads, and it literally took me half an hour to get it started. So even if you've got all that power coming to the battery, for whatever reason, they don't like to start. So I'm going to give my guy Raf a call and get him to come and collect the car, and then we'll deal with the problem once we get this taken back home.
Now, before Raf loads the Range Rover onto his truck, we thought it would be a good idea to hook up some jump leads directly from his truck and see if we can get this engine started. But still nothing.
Nah, completely dead still.
Let me try that connection. Try now.
Right. It wants to start.
Could it be we've got some electrical gremlins?
It's getting there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't do that, we'll leave it. Yeah.
So maybe I was wrong, and this really is a non-runner.
Handbrake's off, yeah. Transmission fault, traction reduced. What is that? But yeah, I think we're gonna get this one put onto the truck. I am adamant it is gonna start. Whilst I let Raf deal with that, I'm just gonna have a quick walk around and show you something which caught my eye. Obviously this car pocket is full of all non-runners. You know, 70 plate Range Rover Sport, 8 Series BMW, really nice that. But what caught my eye is this. So we've got an engine over here, and we've got a Volkswagen with some serious damage. Wow.
Which brings me on to today's video sponsor, Car Vertical.
If you want to save yourself from any nasty surprises when buying your next car, then you should always do a Car Vertical check.
When I ran a check on the Range Rover, it uncovered a huge insight into the car's history. It showed green ticks for having no mileage fraud, no outstanding finance and no accident damage, which meant that this Range Rover should be a safe purchase. However, it did show an amber light for ownership. This was more of a precaution to make me aware that frequent ownership changes could be a sign of unresolved issues, and in this case, the last owner kept this car for just 3 months. However, if we take a look at this BMW X1's report, we can see that it has 2 green lights for finance and mileage, but the dreaded amber light for damage. Sometimes on Car Vertical you can even see photos of what kind of damage was sustained, and in this case it was pretty severe to the front end, which meant it ended up being an insurance write-off marked as a category C, meaning structural damage. Now if you bought this car not knowing that information, you would be suffering a huge loss, as having a categorized car would severely impact the value of when you come to sell it in the future.
So always make sure to check any car out before you buy using a Car Vertical check with the link in the description below. And don't forget to use my discount code, which is BUY20, to save yourself a nice chunk of discount on your next history check. I'm waiting for you lot to get in the comments and be like, oh, that's where Range Rovers belong, on the back of a truck. Well, I know people shout out about Range Rovers having issues, and they're not wrong, they can have their problems. But in this case, I'm buying a 2007 Range Rover with 200,000 miles on the clock. I'm not expecting any miracles. I mean, if we can get this car back home and put a trickle charger, get the battery fully charged and see if this car starts, the fact that even if it runs, I'll be happy knowing that, do you know what, for the price I've paid, this is something workable. The only thing that's going to be interesting is, like I said, for me, using this car for parts was kind of the idea behind it. But if we do get this car running and it drives okay, knowing me, I'm going to end up wanting keeping it or something, aren't I? Having the cheapest, highest mileage Range Rover Vogue SE in the country. But let's see how things go once we get this car back. But for now, we are following my new 07 Range Rover. Let's see how this one pans out.
So after a short trip to get this car back home and somehow maneuvered onto the driveway, the first thing on my mind was to get this car put on charge ASAP. So I pulled out the extension lead, popped the bonnet up, got my trickle charger, plugged it onto the battery and left the car alone for nearly 18 hours.
So I've had the car on charge now all night. Something a bit bizarre is the side light or the indicator. It's been sort of illuminated and flashing throughout the night whilst it's been on trickle charge. So I'm not very hopeful, but let's see if we've had any charge going on to the... What have we got? Did it go up to the second bar? I'm not hopeful that this car is going to start. I did manage to get the car unlocked yesterday, so I had enough power on the jump pack to use the central locking, which was good. So all the doors are working. It isn't a case of having to climb through the passenger side to get to the driver's seat. But right now I've got in the car and I can't see anything going on, so I'm not very hopeful. Yeah, it's not looking good. Let's go to plan B, get the battery out of my old Range Rover, popped into this high mileage Range Rover. I'm feeling positive. Let's try and see if we can get this Range Rover started in this video.
So the first thing we need to do is loosen the clips for the bonnet struts. Then we need to move this lever into a higher position, which puts the bonnet at a more vertical angle. Now it's just 2 bolts and clamps that secure the battery in its locked position. They will need to be removed to be able to get the battery out of the car. And once that's done, you'll need both a 13 and a 10mm spanner to loosen both bolts on the terminal. Only then you'll be able to remove the battery safely. Just be careful not to pinch anything on the way out. Now we can carefully put in the other battery taken from my personal Range Rover, as I know this one is working as it should, and then all that's left to do is connecting it back up to the terminals.
Right, so batteries in from the other Range Rover. So in theory, we had no issues with running the other Range Rover, so that battery should be okay. So let's jump inside and check it out. So what have we got? We've got a little bit of power. Let's give it a go and see what happens. Completely flat. What the hell? All right, let's try again. Oh, it's not doing anything.
But for some reason, even though this battery started my other Range Rover, in this car it's completely flat.
terminals all seem fine. I wasn't expecting that. Right, lights on, let's try again. Screen's on, ignition on, let's go for it. Why is it still flat? Why is it still flat? That doesn't make any sense. This is bizarre. Like, it's completely dead now. If I go outside, disconnect the battery, then put it back on, it'll be okay, but it just won't want to start. I've just had a thought. What if it's that there's so many fault codes that have been stored that something's not allowing the car to be started? So plugging in my diagnostic machine, clearing all the codes once we've got power to the car, and seeing if that makes a difference. It is worth a shot. I'll give it a go.
So let's see if my diagnostic tool can bring up any fault codes, as if we do have electrical issues, we could be in for some serious problems.
Code scan. There's going to be so many fault codes on this car right now. I've never seen so many fault codes. Look, we've got 9, 3, 13, 5, 2, 6, 7, 5, 10, 2, 4. This is a joke, man. Like, so many.
But let's try clearing those fault codes and seeing what happens.
Let's give it a go. Ignition on. What the hell?
And yet again, the car wouldn't start. But I did have an idea I wanted to try before changing the battery.
I just want to try once more to put this charge on. It is a bit low, but we'll give it a go. Let's just reset that. Come on. Come on, old Range Rover. It was cranking.
Finally, we are getting somewhere, and one thing we now know for sure is that this engine is not seized. Could it really just be that we need a new battery?
It still sounded though like the battery wasn't sufficient enough, because I know from starting that Range Rover what it's meant to be like. It was struggling. Maybe I'll just need to go buy a brand new powerful battery, but some progress is better than no progress. So I've put the battery on trickle charge, the one from my existing Range Rover, and it's still showing as being pretty low. But I'll go buy a battery, leave this one on charge. So in theory, this will potentially start the car. And if it doesn't, I'll have a brand new battery, which I can always use in the other Range Rover. So let me go shopping and find a new battery that's powerful and is gonna hopefully get this old 200,000 mile V8 Range Rover running and started.
So I took a quick trip down to Costco, as it's my go-to for car batteries. And no, I didn't buy any food, unfortunately. Strictly business on this visit, as daylight wasn't on my side. And as a precaution, I ended up with 2 batteries, as they were slightly different to the one I was replacing. But just before I put this new battery into the cheapie, I want to try starting it one last time, as while I was away, both the battery and my jump pack were kept on charge.
So let me disconnect this, get the jump pack put on, and let's try and start it one more time. This is the last resort before we change the battery. All right, that's good. It's registering charge. It is getting dark as well, so I'm conscious because there's only so much I can show you guys before the lighting goes. Okay, let's give it a final go before we change that battery. Ooh. That wasn't a good place to put that. Right, ignition on. Just let all the lights turn off. Should we go for it? Okay. Oh, no, no, no way, no. No freaking way, no. No. Oh my God. Non-runner Range Rover, 375 bid. And the engine sounds pretty good. Go on, give it a rev. And again. 200,000 miles. What a motor. That is going to be the start of this 200,000 mile, 375 pound bid Range Rover on the channel. I wasn't sure if we were going to get this car running, but at least we know we've got something we can work with. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to see what's going to come next with this car. We need to take it for a drive and we need to get it inspected to find out what issues we're going to have with the cheapest Range Rover in the country. Thanks so much again for watching, guys, and I'm going to see you next Sunday at 6 p.m. Take care, guys.